All right, so yeah, let's jump into it. Today we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts and some details for signing the petition. We're petitioning the state to become a minor political party here in Colorado, and we have to turn in 10,000 signatures. We're targeting about 15,000, so we'll need lots of folks out there kind of talking to folks and getting their signature. There will be a few things that I'm going to cover. I think that will probably take care of most situations, but there are really so many different scenarios where somebody may ask a question that you weren't expecting, or there's something like that. I can't really prepare you for every possible scenario. So there will be a lot of time at the end. The meetings, the Zoom will run for an hour, but even though we're only scheduled for 30 minutes, there'll be a lot of time at the end. If you have specific questions about, what do I say in this situation? If somebody says this, what's the best way to respond? We can talk through some of those things. But this training deck is really just kind of the big points that you'll need to remember as you go through and talk to folks about signing the petition. Feel free to ask questions along the way or save them at the end, whatever works for you. There will be one spot in the middle. I'll give you a little heads up right now. There'll be one spot in the middle where I'm going to ask you to come off mute and kind of finish the sentence. And this is actually going to be good training and good practice for you when you're out there talking to folks about forward and about why you're supporting the movement and things like that. If you're not comfortable answering, the question or filling in the sentence or kind of sharing your personal perspective, that's fine. But this will be an opportunity for you to kind of in a front of a friendly audience, kind of get some support from other folks who are trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, which is help us grow. So with that, let me jump to the next slide. So if you remember nothing else, remember these two key points. These are two things that can get us in trouble if we're not paying attention to them. A lot of the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about today will be helpful suggestions and good ideas, but these 2 points I really want you to remember. And I'm going to talk about each of them in more detail. But just to recap here, you have to physically witness every signature. You can't leave it in the break room at work. You can't mail it off to a buddy and have them mail it back. You have to physically witness every signature. That's just a requirement from the state of Colorado. And you may get a lot of questions about Forward as a party, our platform. Do we support this candidate? Are we against that ballot issue coming up, whatever? Don't talk about any of those things specifically. What we're doing is petitioning, which is a First Amendment right. But when you start talking about things that are coming up for a vote, somebody could accuse us of campaigning instead of petitioning. And then we got to get into campaign finance reporting, and it becomes really complicated. So I'll give you some responses, some kind of standard things you can say if somebody really is kind of, pushing you to say, do you support this or that? But just don't do that. You can always deflect them to our website or any number of other resources that I'm going to give you. So getting signatures. As I said, you have to witness the physical signature on your petition section. And you'll see when I call it a section, what the state of Colorado has given us are these kind of 7-page packets. We stapled them together. There's space for about 50 signatures. They call that a section of the petition. So again, don't mail it off. Don't leave it in the break room. Stay in possession of it. If you have one, keep track of it. I'd feel really bad if you had 40 or 45 signatures, you were almost done with your section, and then the dog ate it, or it was in a stack of other things and accidentally got thrown out. You're giving your time to the movement here, so I don't want that time to be wasted. Keep track of it if you have one. And you don't necessarily have to have one in your possession. We're going to be doing a series of events that we're hosting where people can come to us to sign our petition. And so if you're going to be at 2 or 3 of those and probably not doing much else outside of that, we can hang on to that petition section for you. You don't have to worry about losing it or getting damaged or eaten by the dog or anything like that. But if you do have one, keep track of it. Once you start witnessing signatures, that whole section, which is about 50, not about, it's exactly 50 signatures per packet. Once you start witnessing signatures, that one's yours. We can't hey, Dennis got 10 signatures. He's going to hand off that second section to Rich. Rich is going to go get another 20. We're going to hand it off to Dylan. Dylan's going to go get 5 more. Can't do that. So once you start, it's yours. And that's fine. We've got, I think, over 300 sections and packets we can hand out. So there's plenty. And they don't have to be complete. If you get up to 40 or 45, and then we send out the call, hey, we've hit our quota. Everybody who has one, bring it in. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a full 50. So a big deal, an important point here, we need to know that you are the one working that section. So when you get one and you start getting some signatures, flip to the back page and make sure your name is on that back page. There'll be a spot for you to print your name and print your address. Don't sign it just yet. You'll have to sign in front of a notary when the section is done. And that's just an affirmation that says, yea, verily, I, Dennis Reda, really did witness the people who signed this petition section. That's all it is a simple affirmation, but it has to be notarized. And again, that's a Secretary of State requirement. So keep possession of it, witness every signature, make sure your name's on the back so we know that it's you working it. So a little more about getting signatures. There's a couple of ways, and again, I can't prepare you for everything, but there's a couple of ways where you might be out and about. And I'm going to talk more about our hosted events here in a minute. But if it's not what we're calling one of our hosted events, if you went into the King Supers and you talked to the manager and they're like, yeah, stand in front of the front door, talk to people, it's all good. Or if you went down to 16th Street in Denver, Pearl Street in Boulder, downtown Arvada, if you're just out and about, talking to folks, getting some signatures, you'll need a hook, right? People are out, they're doing stuff, they're heading somewhere. If they've just been shopping, they're heading home. You'll need some kind of hook to get their attention. We did a training a couple of months ago about what they call an elevator pitch, how to get somebody's attention and deliver a message in like 10, 15, 20 seconds, about the amount of time it takes to ride an elevator these days. So you can Google all those kinds of things, elevator pitch, how to get somebody's attention, how to persuade somebody to do something in 30 seconds or less. There's a million websites out there for that. And really that kind of thing is its own 1-hour training. But think about how you're going to get somebody's attention. When we were out in Boulder a few weeks ago, just standing on a street corner, there were 3 of us. I would walk up to folks and I'd say, hey, how you doing? Looks like you're busy, but can I chat with you for just a second? It was just a way to kind of get somebody's attention, get them engaged in a conversation. That worked about 10% of the time, which is about average, really. One of the other guys who was out there that day, he would walk up to folks and he was more, do you think our democracy's in trouble? And that's a little shocking, but it got some people's attention. Worked about 10% of the time. So think about a way to get somebody's attention, some way that you're comfortable with. You don't want to come across as like a salesperson, giving a sales pitch, because people kind of sense that. So find something you're comfortable saying, and it'll be more natural and relaxed when you do kind of get them involved in conversation. Once you have their attention and you kind of explain what you're asking for, hey, I'm a volunteer with a group called Forward Colorado. We're petitioning the state of Colorado to be a minor party. We're based on core values and principles, not just empty sales pitch like the 2 old parties. Whatever your thing is, whatever your elevator pitch is. And they've talked to you and they're like, yeah, okay, I'll sign your petition. Great. Ask them, did you vote in the last election? If they did vote and they have not moved, their voter registration is probably up to date, and that's important. If there's any way you can convince them, or if they've moved recently, or if they're just not sure, govotecolorado.gov. Great website, easy to use. You go there, you click on find my registration, you enter a couple of pieces of information like your date of birth, address, et cetera. 30 seconds, they can confirm their voter registration. That will really help us avoid any kind of rejected signatures later on when we turn all these in to the Secretary of State's office. So that's a really great website. It's easy to use, 30 seconds, it removes all doubt. And they can confirm a couple of key pieces of information. The name they registered with, no nicknames. A lot of people, if you're Charles Jones, you may go by Chip Jones or Chuck Jones. We want them to sign with the same name that they've registered to vote with. and the same address on their voter registration. A lot of folks have a PO box where they get their mail. This is not a mailing thing. When you register to vote, you have to tell them where you live. So it's a physical address. That's the same address we need on the petition. So
Dennis, do you know what the requirement is around middle initials? I've been confused about that. Like when I check my own registration, I have like my full middle name, but I think the petition section only asks for a middle initial. Do you know, like, if I'm registered as, Richard Eli Herman, and let's say I didn't even put my middle initial, I just put Richard Herman. Do you know, will they throw that out if you don't put a middle initial, or is it really just about kind of the nicknames?
it's a great question. They've told us they do have some flexibility with the name. Like, they are familiar with a lot of the shortened versions of names, like
Okay.
Elizabeth Smith. If she signed it Lizzie Smith, that
Right.
would probably be okay, but there's really no reason to risk it. As far as the middle initial goes, again, whatever shows up on govotecolorado.gov for your registration, that's how I would sign the form. But they've told us they'll be flexible on middle initials. They'll even be a little bit flexible on what county you live in. Like, some people don't actually know what county they live in. So if that's blank, but like everything else lines up, first name, last name, street address, city, all that kind of stuff. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room, but if there's any doubt, then I would say just use whatever you registered to vote with as far as naming and such.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing to keep an eye on the petitions, because I've probably screwed this up looking at my own. In one case, I think one thing, and I had to do a double take, so I'm just bringing this up on a call. When people print their address, they are looking for that county, but it's so common just to put your state. Like, I just noticed I've got one that put Colorado under county.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about that very issue here in a
Okay.
second. But
All
yeah,
right. Sorry.
yeah, no, great point.
Okay.
So
I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So yeah, witness the signature. Really do your best to make sure that what they're signing, name and address, matches the registration. And govotecolorado.gov. You yourself can go there, check your own voter registration so you're familiar. You can tell them, hey, look for the link that says find my registration, all that kind of stuff. That's all helpful. So yeah, watch them sign. I mean, you have to watch them sign anyway, but watch them and give them a little bit of heads up, because the address line is the street address, the city, and the county. Everybody has to be a Colorado resident, so you don't need to tell them you live in Colorado, right? Yeah, the county is something, and I think that's probably why the Secretary of State's office gives some flexibility, because it's so unusual for people to, street address, city, county, instead of state. So there's some flexibility, and we've met with them. They will, in good faith, do their best to validate every signature we submit. But the more we can ensure that kind of quality assurance, that quality check up front by having folks go to govotecolorado.gov, that helps, and that avoids you wasting your time, because you're out there, whether it's 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever you can give. I don't want that time to be wasted. So after they sign, they're helping us. So say thanks. Don't just walk off or anything like that. Give them a business card or other printed material if you have some of that. We can certainly get you some business cards. We've got thousands sitting in a box. So if you need 50 business cards, we can get you some. But really, if somebody has asked you some questions and they're willing to sign the petition and they seem like they're really kind of interested, it's good use of your time to talk to them and kind of follow up. I mean, we're always looking for more volunteers, and that can be people who just want to volunteer online, like with our, different working groups. If somebody wants to give an hour of their time on a weekend to, come to one of our hosted events and, be a greeter and say, hey, yeah, welcome, you're at the right place. Here's table number 1. There's lots of ways to help out. So if somebody seems like they're pretty interested in supporting the movement, spend the time and talk to them. But at a minimum, try and give them something like a business card to remember, and then point them towards the forwardparty.com Colorado website, where they can sign up for our email newsletter and such. So a couple more things, and I've talked about some of these already. Yeah, if you're out on your own, you'll need some kind of way to get their attention, some kind of hook on your elevator pitch, and some way to, tell them what we're all about and why you're asking for the petition signature. But one of the lessons we've learned is that people in motion tend to stay in motion, and getting them to stop and chat, it's hard. A 10% success rate on something like that is about average or even pretty good. So don't be discouraged. You may be out there for an hour, you may try and talk to 50 people, and you may have 4 or 5 or 6 actually willing to talk to you. That's a good return on investment. That's a good success rate for the time you put in. This is hard stuff that we're asking you to volunteer to do here. So don't get discouraged, and always be respectful. That can be challenging after a long day of getting rejected. We were out at the Broncos tailgate at one of their games there in December, talking to folks who just hanging out. I mean, they weren't going anywhere. They're just sitting there, barbecuing some cheeseburgers. And I walked up to this guy and it's like, "Oh, what do you want?" And I told him what I was all about. And he looks at me and he's like, "I live in Canada." And I'm looking at him, it's like, "You got a Broncos jersey on. You're next to a truck that's got a Colorado license plate, and you're telling me you live in Canada?" Sure, dude. You don't want to sign the petition, that's fine. But I didn't call him on it, but it's like, you will get all kinds of bizarre rejections. "We don't live here. No habla inglés." I mean, just, it's fine. Don't be discouraged. Just say thank you and have a nice day, and then go on, talk to the next person. And along those lines, if you can go out with somebody else, go out with a partner, that helps. You'll have highs and lows, and your energy will kind of ebb and flow. Having somebody else or a couple other people out there with you, that really helps. And there won't be a continuous stream of people, right? I mean, you'll be standing on a street corner like we did in Boulder here a few weeks ago. There were 3 of us. There were times all 3 of us were talking to somebody, and there were times when we're just kind of talking to each other because there was nobody walking by at that moment. So go out with somebody if you can. High pedestrian areas, those traffic areas, Pearl Street and Boulder, et cetera, in front of a grocery store or whatever. Those are good places to be. Dense neighborhoods, if you don't want to spend a lot of time walking between houses, so if you can go somewhere and get like a lot of houses covered in a short amount of time, that's best. And go to the Colorado calendar on the forwardparty.com website. When we are scheduling events, you can always come out just for an hour, Pearl Street, Arvada, Littleton, whatever works for you. Our focus lately, though, has really been on hosting our own events. We've got thousands of people in our database that have signed up to get our newsletters, so they're pretty supportive, we think. Andrew Yang, Christine Todd Whitman, David Jolly, Miles Taylor, a lot of the big names in the movement have literally millions of Twitter followers. So we're spreading the word about these hosted events, and folks who support what we're trying to do can come to us. So that's a much more easier crowd, I guess, is the way to put it. So at those, even if you can only come out for a short time, we have to witness every signature. If we had 300 people coming out to our public park where we pitched a tent, and there's one person witnessing signatures, that's frustrating for them, right? It's just frustrating for the 300 people who came out, took time out of their day to sign, and now they're having to wait in line. So if you can come out even just for an hour or two, that will really help. So a couple of questions that come up frequently, and this is not at all an exhaustive list. Signing the petition does not change your voter registration. It's simply a statement that says you think Forward should exist as a minor political party in Colorado. That's all it is. And the people who sign do have to be registered Colorado voters on that day. And I've underlined it because that's kind of important. Somebody may say, "Well, we're registered right now, but my spouse just got a job and we're moving to Florida in 2 months." That's okay. On the day you sign, if you're a registered voter, they'll count that signature. You can even go to the govotecolorado.gov, register to vote, turn around and sign the petition. That's okay too. There's no timeline for you have to be a voter for a certain amount of time before you can sign. And then lastly, you can't witness your own signature. So when you do get a petition section, hold off on actually signing it, sign somebody else's, because you can't witness your own signature. It's just one of those things. but those tend to be the questions that come up most frequently. So now we're getting to the part where I cannot prepare you for every possible scenario. I cannot anticipate every question you're going to get asked, but I can give you some guidelines about what you can and can't talk about. Don't talk about current candidates or current ballot issues. I mentioned that earlier. If somebody says, hey, they were out there campaigning, they haven't filed the appropriate campaign finance documentation with the state, that creates a big headache for us. So don't talk about those things. We're simply petitioning the state to be recognized as a minor political party. You may get asked a lot about our platform. Is Forward pro-choice or pro-life? Are we pro-gun or gun control? Are we this or are we that? There's a lot of really controversial issues out there, and people want to know where you stand on these things. Forward has a set of principles and core values. We don't have a robust platform. I mean, the two old parties kind of do that. I'm pro-gun, so vote for me, or I'm pro-life, so vote for me. It's a sales pitch, right? We're based more on good ideas, building consensus, and finding things that work for the majority. It's not a sales pitch. It's not a simple answer to a complex question. But you're going to get asked those questions, right? Are you for this? Are you against that? A lot of people, they're single issue voters. They have one thing, maybe two things that really matter to them, and they don't really care about much of anything else. So they're going to push you on those things. You should be familiar with the core values and the principles, the vibrant democracy, the free people, the thriving communities, building consensus from the bottom up. I mean, all these things that we really stand for as a party. It's almost like you're back in high school and you got to study for the exam. Read the webpage, be familiar with these things so you can talk about it. But yeah, don't worry if somebody pushes you for like, are you pro this or anti that? And or if they're familiar with Forward and like, you guys don't have a platform, you're not a real party. It's like, well, we're a new kind of party, not just a new party. And not everybody. Some people will spend 5 minutes talking to you and then they still won't sign. I've had that happen to me. They just really want to have a debate because they have strong feelings on things. That's okay too. So in the last election, Forward did endorse a lot of candidates running at the national level. Some of them were Democrats, some of them were Republicans, some were independents. We are not a new flavor of liberal Democrat. We are not some new kind of conservative offshoot of the GOP. We're a new party. We're a new kind of party. We're based on core values and principles, not just empty sales pitches that we're going to tell you just to get your vote. So think about these things, and we can do like a Q&A later. I've only got a couple more slides, but this may be the hardest part of talking to people about Forward. Oh, you're a political party. What do you stand for? What's your platform? Well, the big thing we're focusing on right now is voting reform. Being stuck with the lesser of two evils, that doesn't help our democracy. So you can talk about ranked choice voting or all the different things that we're working on. But yeah, be prepared that this may be the hardest thing that you'll get asked when you're out there talking to folks. So we're coming up on the bit where you can come off mute and kind of share some of your personal perspective on these things. So as I mentioned, you're going to get a lot of these questions. They're going to try and paint you into a corner. In all that you do, be sincere. That's the best advice I can give you. They're going to ask a lot of questions. You won't have the answers for most of those. But I think as long as you let them know, it's like, hey, look, I'm not running for office. I'm not part of the leadership team. I'm just giving my time. I'm out here today volunteering because I believe in this. And this is the question that I want you to kind of finish the sentence. You're helping Forward because fill in the blank. So I'll go first. I wouldn't ask you to do anything I wouldn't do. Oops. So I'm supporting Forward because I think the two old parties can't be trusted. I think they always make promises, but they never follow through. So that's why I'm supporting Forward, because I don't trust the two old parties. So I'm gonna call on you, Rich, because I know you probably have an answer ready to go. Tell us all, why are you supporting Forward? Come off mute. You're on mute.
I tell people that we're a party based on political civility and human decency and respectful dialogue, compromise, and getting shit done. That's literally how I describe it to people. And I found that resonates with a lot of people. So personally, I don't do an anti-Republican or anti-Democrat slant. I try to address the fact that there's clearly dysfunction and polarization, and that most people want that to stop. And I've had, whether they sign or not, because I even had someone yesterday who was, I don't know, she said she's a registered Democrat, but she's a big Trump supporter, and she wouldn't sign it because she's just not, because she's, I don't know which partisan she is. Maybe she doesn't either, but she's clear a partisan. And so, true partisans have no interest in having third parties. So that's usually, I think, my toughest objection. But if I talk something about along the lines of what I just said, about this is a party based on principles and values and being civil to each other and working together, that usually people like it. They're like, shit, sign me up.
All right, good stuff. All right. Anybody else want to share? Help us know why you're supporting Ford, because you might get asked that out on the street. Valerie, what you got?
What I tell people is that what we are doing right now is trying to instantiate voter reform. And we're doing that by simply trying to become a party recognized in Colorado. And all we want is open primaries, which Colorado already has, and ranked choice voting or something similar where it's not winner take all. That's it. And people seem to be responding to that. In fact, I'm waiting for my petitions to come in because I got a whole bunch of people who have already agreed to sign.
Awesome. Dylan, what about you?
I was going to say, I am helping Forward Party kind of as a younger side of the demographic, because I feel personally, and then I also feel consensus for my generation is that we feel unheard and kind of exploited in politics. I feel the issues that are being campaigned by the two larger parties, very rarely we feel any real change in our day-to-day life, although we seem, even especially on social media, everyone seems very involved in kind of whatever policies are being pushed through. But once there's kind of that big push and we see the end of the elections and all of the glamour goes away, very little changes to the day-to-day. So I think we need to find a political party that is less focused on just winning against the other and actually creating a space that allows everyone to feel heard. And then more importantly, allows the changes that they are being allowed to vote on actually happen and feel that impact in their day-to-day, that it shouldn't be, well, I vote on all these things, but none of them actually impact me, because that's how I have felt. It's like I am involved and I vote every single election I get a vote in, but my day-to-day has never changed anything. I don't feel the difference day-to-day, which I think has kind of created a unmotivation for my generation to be involved. So I think we just need to kind of change that narrative, and hopefully everyone will allow to feel involved and feel the effect.
Yeah, one of my favorite t-shirts off the Forward Party website, the merch you can buy, it's literally, it says the Get Shit Done Party. And yeah, like Rich mentioned, it's easy to talk, but you got to do the work too. You got to make a difference in people's lives. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, how about you?
Well, I came to the Forward Party for the same reason regarding the two parties are ineffective and not leading us. They're certainly not governing us well. And the thought that the Forward Party is focusing on good governance rather than political governance was the main attraction to me. So that's where I'm supporting the most. All
right, good stuff. Well, thank you all for that. I just love hearing all the different reasons why we're all coming together, because there's so much that needs to be done, and we're all bringing our own perspective on that. So that's awesome. So we do have a lot of questions from volunteers like yourselves about, how do I talk about Ford? Can I say this? Can I say that? The platform is really focused right now on voting reform and not a lot of other things. So we are putting together a how to talk about forward, a training session that that'll be in the future. So look for that on our calendar. And then the last slide, yeah, I'm about done. The last slide is just kind of a recap of the points we talked about. Witness everything. Don't talk about, things up for a vote soon. When you're out on your own, practice that good icebreaker or hook, that elevator pitch message to get folks to engage and sign the petition. And yeah, if you talk to 50 people and you get 5 signatures, that's success. Acknowledge that for what it is. What you're doing is hard. Make no mistake about it. So with that, I think we just have a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any questions, anything specific that they want me to go back, or other things that they're concerned about? What can I do for you?
Dennis, this was oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Well,
Joe.
Mike,
No, go,
quick
Joe.
question about the calendar. Is it a national calendar or is there a Colorado forward party calendar with Colorado events?
It's specifically for Colorado. Let's see if I can find the link here. Yeah, forwardparty.com/Colorado_calendar. That's our calendar for events happening here in Colorado.
Got it. Thank you.
I was just going to say, this is the first one I've sat through. You did a great job, Dennis. It was terrific. Thank you. And if you get to the point where you need like one of those example petitions that has like the various red circles that shows like every error you can make, you can use my section. You probably have to block out the names and addresses kind of thing, but
Yeah.
if you need an example, like a working example of each thing not to do that you went over, I have one for you.
All right, lessons learned. Good stuff. Valerie, what can I do for you?
I was just checking my voter registration on the online thing, and it says I don't exist. And I know I voted last year and I voted the year before. So, and they send me a message that says that my vote was counted. So I must exist somewhere.
I haven't heard of that happening before. I've had a couple of people. So there's 2 links. One is if you want to register for the first time, and one is just to find your registration. You click on the one that says, and then it asks for like your name, your address, some personal information. Huh.
It asks for name, zip code, and birthday. And that's it. So I'm a little concerned that if I go check somebody's voter registration online, just to make sure they sign it correctly, that they might not show up either.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we should definitely figure that out, Valerie, before you turn in your petition, right? We don't want to invalidate the whole section because you get notarized and then the state doesn't even see you as a registered voter.
Well,
wouldn't-
they must see me as a registered voter because I get a ballot and they tell me that my vote done it.
Yeah. Their
So
website. Yeah, their website may just be down today and not responding. I'd say like try again on Monday, and then if you're getting the same like I can't be found sort of a thing, then yeah, send an email off to. Let me type it in here. It's oops,
It says if you're unable
Colorado
to
at
locate your record, please contact the county clerk.
party with that.
Can't hear you, Valerie.
Can't hear you, Valerie.
That mic issue is still.
Oh, yeah,
problem.
I'm using my mic through my computer
Yeah.
because I don't have anything else. At the bottom, it says if you are unable to locate your record, please contact the county clerk or recorder. So I guess I'll do that on Monday.
Okay.